if you are living in Kenya and obviously not living in a hole, you know Kenya has been going through a change of sorts. Yeah, this whole problem came with the recent finance bill. I remember when Ruto was campaigning, he was saying this is going to be a government for the people. One thing he said was that I am going to eliminate the debt Kenya has.
As we're going to have this discussion, realize that the debt problem goes beyond Ruto. Corruption. I don't know. Do we ever get tired of hearing that word?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from you, my beautiful, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Ramblings of a King, where we get to talk about anything and everything. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is off the table. You are watching God's greatest gift to mankind, the one, the only King. So, today we are going to have a discussion that I personally think is long overdue. Yeah? Now, if you are living in Kenya and obviously not living in a hole, you know Kenya has been going through a change of sorts. Yeah, we have been going through a phase that, if you ask me, I think is very, very necessary. Yeah, because Ababu, or at least for the common eye, or for the common person, or for the layman, this whole problem came with the recent finance bill that was brought to the floor of the parliament for it to be discussed and basically for it to be passed into law. And people are like, no, this is not for us. And this eventually broke down into people going into the streets and saying, we do not want this. Yeah, and we had a series of protests and marches and all of that. And we are where we are at now. Now, let me say this. This discussion is only one of many. Yeah, we want to open this up and dig into where this came from and eventually land to where we are going as a nation, as a people, as a community. Yeah, but with all of that said, I would want to introduce the guest I have on the podcast today, yeah? And by request, we shall call him Common Mwananchi, Mwananchi wa kawaida. And that is what most, if not all of us are, excluding hashtag Ruto must go, yeah? But all of us, most of us, are Common Mwananchis. And if I think about it, the main reason we are here is because I remember when Ruto was campaigning. Yeah, even at this moment, I do not feel right calling him my president. So I remember when Ruto was campaigning, he was saying this is going to be a government for the people. But also, on top of that hustler spiel that he was giving the people, one thing he said was that I am going to eliminate the debt Kenya has. Yeah, and people are like, a government for the people plus eliminating debt. This is the deal. Yeah? So the main word here is debt. Debt. And Kenya, if you're a Kenyan, whether you are educated or not, unajua tuko na deni. Kenya has a debt and it has a massive debt problem. So my question to start would be where this whole thing originated from. Because if I think about it in Kifikiria time when we got independence, at least ikienda sana hata 10 years inakaa mingi. Like 5 years into our independence, it seemed like things were going well. And then for some reason, things started breaking down. So the question is, hii historia deni ilianzia wapi?
Thank you. As you've heard, mimi ni Common Mwananchi, and I have a few opinions. To begin with, let me start by saying that we need to understand that we are not fighting Ruto, but Hydra, a many-headed monster. You've, as we're going to have this discussion, realize that the debt problem goes beyond Ruto. It actually compels us to understand our monetary policy and our economic history beyond the independent history of Kenya. And the question you've asked, where did this all start? I am tempted to begin with the origins of intergovernmental debt. And you could start from anywhere in history, but I will start with the world wars. So let's cut back to the beginning of the 20th century, where you have the United States, which is having a booming economy. It is exporting a lot. And the mindset of the Americans is ultra-conservative. They want to build America. And remember, they have a long-standing beef with Europe. Most of the residents in America ran away
From Europe. Yeah. Because this was the land of the free.
Yeah. And they're doing well.
They really were doing
They're actually doing well. And it so happens that there is a world war. Now, when America had its civil war, France gave it a loan. Yeah. And the loan used to facilitate the Northerners against the Southerners. And you know how the story went. I said a loan? No, it was a grant. They did not have to pay it back. World War I, France is in trouble. And America is like, hey, France was there for us.
Lazima, bro, achana kukuja nikusaidia.
You have to come through.
Yeah.
But do they give them a grant? You'd expect,
Since you already gave me this, let me do the same.
We'll do the same. America says, okay, we'll give you a loan. We'll give you a loan. But don't worry about paying it back. We'll sort it out
after all this business is finished. Yeah.
And then it also says we'll give you support. Now, the support it gave, at first it sent armaments. It didn't send soldiers. Then they used those armaments. And because they did not send soldiers with the armaments also charged as part of the loan they were expected to pay. And America since then has adopted a very aggressive policy of give me back what I gave you, which is quite a double standard because what they were given for free. Fast forward again, we have World War II. And Europe is in an economic mess. America realizes, if we let this continue, we might not be able to recover our debt. Because people are broke, they are not producing. So America says, you know what, we need a financial institution to facilitate the reconstruction of Europe. Incidentally, that's in the 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
We get to the 60s and here we are, Africans coming to the picture. And Africans also have a story to say. They're saying, hey, you guys, you did us bad. You know? And we need to reconstruct. We need reparations. Yeah, and by then we already have international financial institutions. I believe it's called the International Reconstruction and Development Bank. Part of the World Bank, and you also have the International Monetary Fund. These two institutions say, okay, we will give you facilitations to start up your economy. Don't worry about paying back the loan. We'll sort it out as time goes by. Origin of intergovernmental debt in Kenya. You say that we seem to be doing well when we got our independence. But the story is more nuanced than it looks. Because when we got independence, remember, the kind of system that Britain had put only allowed for low-level skilled workers indigenously and importation of expertise labor. So you're given government, but you don't have people to run government, right?
Yeah.
And Britain is like, okay, we understand. We might have put you in a sort of mess. We will give you 1,500 workers. Yeah, we will give you... No, actually it was 7,500 workers, expatriates. And in addition to that, we will give you 12 million pounds for settlement schemes. We will also pay pension for the civil servants that are working during the colonial times, and we will give technical assistance of 10 million British pounds. This is it comes down to over 45 million pounds in a period of 3 years, right after we get independence. And it's not just Britain. Britain was our largest contributor.
Yeah.
We had the Commonwealth Development Corporation, which later on has become the British International Investment. And they also gave us a loan. Yeah, interestingly, they're the ones who helped KTDA start up. KTDA has been quoted by them to be the third largest tea exporter in the world. So credits to them. But they also gave a loan, and it was very unpopular at the time. So when you talk of the origin of intergovernmental debt in Kenya, it begins with our independence. It begins with our independence. And in addition to that, it's not just Britain. There was 65 million US dollars granted in US aid, of which 15 million US dollars was a long-term loan. We had a loan from West Germany to the Industrial and Commercial Development Corporation. We had a loan from the World Bank. So, tulianza na madeni. We did not have capacity to run government by taxes alone. In addition to this problem, I've told you the problem of expertise was also there. We had to import labor. In fact, the first central bank governor of Kenya came on recommendation of the IMF. His name is Dr. Leon Baransky. He was a Polish economist, but he only served for 1 year. His position was taken over by someone called Duncan Dego, head of public service, even before we got independence. And he ran the central bank for 20 years. So that is where intergovernmental debt started in Kenya.
Okay, that I do understand. Because you're looking at a situation where this is a country that has basically been liberated from its colonizers.
Yeah.
The people or the standout figures of that time, people who you could say had the knowledge needed to run a country, were very scarce. Yeah, you could only pinpoint particular names, particular people. Yeah? So it was only a handful of people who you could say have the knowledge, the expertise, the experience needed to run a country. But at the same time, this is a whole country. And a handful of people cannot take on that task themselves. Plus, you're looking at a position where now, nikatu vile mtu anaweza fika itini unaambia aya toka enda. Yeah, without nothing. It's very difficult. Yeah. So akasema, okay, shika hii, start with it. Yeah. In due time, you will give it back. But for now, do not worry about the when. Yeah. But my thinking is this. When we got independence, we were of the mind of not only are we going to be independent from the people who colonized us, but you're also going to be independent in terms of we're going to be able to stand on our own. Now, it is not foreign for even a business right now to take a loan in order for it to start up. Yeah, that is common practice. But the vision is, after a certain period of time, I will be able to, number one, repay this loan back, and number two, operate without the need for loans. So my day-to-day operations can go on without the need for loans. But the thing is, huku, it seems like it is the opposite. Yeah, we are constantly getting loans, and the development that we think we see, for some reason, it feels like it is degenerative. It feels like it is taking us back. There are very few things we as Kenyans can claim that hii ni yetu. Yeah, we have done it by our own will, using our own money. Yeah, because even right now, it feels like we are operating based on someone else's mercy. Yeah. So something must have broken down somewhere for us to be in the position that we are in. And that is where I want us to at least understand before we move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
We faced another problem once we began. And that problem was we had a lot of politicians, very few technocrats. I sorry to say, we had very few people who knew what the macroeconomics of Kenya looked like and how to direct it.
Now, before we go even far, explain what you mean by a technocrat.
A technocrat is a specialist, basically, in layman terms. It is someone who understands the delicate balance in a sector. He has specialized knowledge, he or she. And you find that in Kenya, politics has been driven by primarily by individual interests. And that is a problem we faced at the onset. Now, that is not to say we did not have a clue as to how to run government. Right after we got independence, Tom Mboya was in the Ministry of Economic Planning and Development. And the state had already started investing in roads, schools, housing, irrigation, and utilities. This is where the loans were going. And we had a national development plan. And the policy that was published in the session of paper of 1965 was, to put it in John Joe's word, it was to emphasize it was a man eat man rather than man eat nothing kind of policy. It was a capitalist policy. In Tanzania, they began with a socialist policy through the Arusha Declaration, where they nationalized everything, including the banks. But Kenya didn't do that. Kenya was like, okay, let's maintain things as they are, and then we train people, get them, it's called Africanization. We replace people slowly and deliberately. And one of the statements, now I'm taking a statement from the development plan of 1970 to 1974. The primary objective of Kanu government is the development of our economic resources to achieve the goal of economic independence together with social justice and a steady improving standard of living for all. So you see, we had an idea. We were not clueless. And I can say the fact that Kenya is where it is today, we compared to its neighbors, it means that there are certain steps that were taken in the right direction. I don't want to be just a prophet of doom. Doom is coming. The section on doom is coming. But first, let me talk about our achievements.
Yeah.
First of all, we had the establishment of the ICDC. I've talked about ICDC. Established by an Act of Parliament, Cap 445, in 1954. It was described by a certain daily as a miracle because it was the investment vehicle of government. And it allowed government to explore opportunities within the state that could increase its revenue capacity and its income. Expand the consolidated fund. And one of the things the ICTC did was obtain a significant market share in the various markets in Kenya. Let me give an example. By the year 19, let me see. Kuandika notes mingi. By the 1970s, we had invested in we had Uchumi supermarkets, We had Union Carbide. We had Firestone. We had significant share in commercial banks. And what these institutions enable the government to do is fund social programs like education, like housing, like irrigation, and other schemes. Now, what made us go deeper and deeper into debt? I believe that is the question you're asking. Corruption. I don't know. Do we ever get tired of hearing that word?
I feel like where we are, it has been said so much that we have grown immune to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people have grown immune to it.
I think we have been either desensitized or placated, just to get used to the environment. Corruption is something very serious. In fact, you just told me this earlier that China has instituted a death penalty for corruption. When Wajakoya suggested, people saw that, corruption, death penalty.
He was looked at as a madman.
Death penalty is a bit much.
What people do not realize is that corruption let me give this example. Nikuje nipate, unatafuna. Yeah. Kwa busy unatafuna. Sema umeshikilia your sugar cane, you're munching on your sugar cane. It might not be the best sugar cane, but it is your sugar cane. And then I come, take whatever you're holding in your hand, and not only take that, hold you down, open your mouth, and also take what is inside your mouth. That should not be normal in any sense. But what it feels like, Sai Nikama, if I go and do that, everyone looking around is like, another day. This is just another day.
Yeah, and I want to add to that. Corruption begins at home. Someone said, if charity begins at home, then so does uncharity.
That's true.
Yeah. How many times did it happen in your class that some people never appeared on the newsmakers list? Because they know the right people.
Yeah.
And what I've come to realize is that schools are microcosms of society.
Yeah.
And if there's any change that is to happen, it should happen first at the local level. And I want to give credit to Mwai Kibaki, our president. We might villainize him for various things, but the reason we're here right now discussing about these issues is because somewhere he sat down and he said, these people deserve free education. And how long did it take him to implement free primary education?
Not long.
One year. It was within a year. Yeah? Alitenga. Now, we forget just how efficient government can be if it is intentional.
Yeah. When you're speaking about it, like the statement made by Khan, if you break it down, that is Kenya saying we want to be self-reliant. And for us to be self-reliant, we have to get to a point where we are able to cater for the needs of each and every citizen, ourselves. Unajua, one thing that, something that puts a wool over people's eyes when it comes to the reign of Kibaki is the beef he had with the prime minister at that time. The beef that he had with Raila at that time, and the whole post-election violence. But you cannot mention that name without thinking about what he has done for this country. Because for you to take a whole generation of children and say that you will basically study for free in Kenya, that was unheard of. Unajua, I think I'm a fruit of free primary education. And to even think that before that, there were people who were paying school fees to study in primary school. It baffles the mind.
Yeah.
It's a very, for me, it's a very foreign concept. Yeah. So now we come to a time, Mama, we are living in a time where it feels like that is slowly creeping back in. See, there are also subsidies given to secondary schools so that the cost can be way, way cheaper, with the aim of ultimately also making secondary school free.
Yeah.
But where are we now? Yeah. So looking at his time in power, that was a very efficient time in Kenya. A very efficient time in Kenya. Yeah. It wasn't the time where even the word corruption itself became more or less foreign.
You know, you remind me of something. There was a time I have this vague memory of right after the NAC rainbow, movement. I was in a matatu. The matatu was going somewhere. Askari akasimamisha hivi anataka kitu.
Kidogo, chai.
You know what happened? He didn't get anything. Not because the driver alizusha, but because abiria alizusha. I can remember. I was little, but I remember it. And it is a memory that was stuck in my head ever since. And now, unfortunately, even as I was coming to the city today, kuna mtu tu, and I know that officer by face, almost, I think almost by name. The poor to kidogo. But let me speak about education first before the second reason why in that. My Nigerian brothers and sisters, I sympathize with you. Yeah? Isn't it curious that history and civic education is optional in Nigeria? And it makes me concerned when I see the government sabotaging our education system. Because what are you trying to tell us? That we've become too smart? Yeah? And so, in my opinion, the most protected workforce in this nation are the health workers and the teachers. Yeah, the health workers and the teachers. Well, I could say lawyers, but there'll be a conflict of interest. But moving on to another reason why we go into debt.